If you've been into RC aerobatics for a long time, you're probably familiar with DownOnTheDeck.com and the man behind it, Joe Hunt. Back in 2005, when I was starting in RC aerobatics, DownOnTheDeck was one of the go-to places to find information about 3D flying and giant scale aerobatics. Joe Hunt not only posted videos of his own proficient 3D flying, after all, he's a very skilled pilot with experience in competitions like the Xtreme Flight Championships, but he also shared videos of the Tournament of Champions, wrote up detailed builds and product reviews, and created tutorials about how to properly set up throttle servo linkages or multi-servo setups in airplane wings. In our chat, we talk about Joe's journey with DownOnTheDeck and his obsession to detail when setting up a new airplane. Pay attention, because we cover many important aspects that can make all the difference when putting together your next airplane. We also chat about his personal journey to learn rifle rolls at the age of 64 and his own YouTube channel, DownOnTheDeck, where he still posts setup tips and tricks and shares his latest RC adventures. Hey Joe, how are you doing?
Hey Juan.
How's it going?
Everything's good. We're having a lot of fun over here. How's NorCal?
Good. We have good weather today. I was actually just looking at the weather forecast for South Carolina. Planning to go to Jonah next week, and there is rain right the 4 days I'm planning to be there. Every other day is perfect, and the 4 days I'm gonna be there is rainy. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, the only thing that seems like it messes it up is the rain.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to ask you. Everybody's interested in all these things we're talking about. The Sacramento event. Are you gonna go? So that's gonna be right after Null.
Yeah, I mean that's at my home field. That's like 10 minutes from my house. So yeah, I definitely will be there.
Well, I want to try to see you there. That looks like fun.
Yeah, it's good. If you come, it'll be even better.
Yeah. Okay, then I gotta go.
Well, hey, so I've known your name for a long time. I only met you actually in person a few months ago. But for those people that are maybe not as familiar with you, could you maybe give it of an intro about yourself and how you got started in the hobby?
Everybody knows I'm a talker. I mean, this could take hours.
We have time.
But yeah, okay, good. All the guys have known me for a long time. They're going to have heard every story that I'm about to tell you. But they're my favorite stories. So, how the first time I got started, that's one of my favorite stories too, is I was walking in Sharper Image back when Sharper Image was cool and it had all kinds of cool gadgets. Now you just go online, they got better stuff. But they had a Firebird. It was a maybe 18-inch stick plane with a controller, and it was $90, and they said it flew. And I go, it flies in the air. You pick a radio and you push the sticks and this thing will fly in the air. And they go, yeah. And I go, oh, I got to have that. Took it home. You had to put a piece of tape to hold the wing to the stick. And I threw it in the air and it flew about 15 feet, crashed, balled up. No good. And I went, that was amazing. I got to get into that. So I looked and found that you go to the hobby store. They had planes. I got a trainer. I tried to fly it in the neighborhood. The neighbors didn't like that so much. Heard you had to join a club. Joined a club, and that was that. It was on. From there, where it gets interesting, to me, and I guess the people that remember Down on the Deck, and that's where you first saw me, is I was in tech for 15 years, at that point. And in the early days before the World Wide Web, and then with the World Wide Web, and then websites. And then I just, for grins, the first thing I bought was a trainer at that hobby store. And then after a couple of weeks, I wanted to know everything. So I wanted to learn everything. I wanted to know what was the history? When did radio control first start? Who are the best in the world? How did they learn? What's going on? I read about the TOC, Bill Bennett, Handel Pretner, on and on and on, all this stuff. And I just had the trainer, and then they said covering, and you have to be a builder. Like, you can't just be a flyer, you got to be a builder. And you can't just be a flyer, you have to be a precision flyer. You got to fly pattern. You're not, you got to do all this stuff or you're not complete. You're not great, and I'm like, okay. Slow down. I'll get to it. So I went and got some orange and green covering, and I recovered the Hangar 9 trainer, which looked real pretty. I covered it all ugly in orange and green. And then I said, I'm a website guy, I'm a tech guy. Let me put just one little HTML page, just a single page, an index.html, and put this plane and a little note saying, I'm Joe Hunt, and I just recovered this trainer. And I put we used to have hit counters at the bottom, a little visitor counter. And so there was nothing then. There was a broken website called RC Online. It was totally broken. It was like a discussion board that was all broken apart. from neglect. And guys would try to post. It would take like hours to post, and it was, corrupted. And within a day, I had 500 views of the covered trainer with a note. And I was like, this is kind of interesting. So I put a little more stuff on there, and within a month, I had 10,000 views, 10,000 visitors. Sorry, 10,000 visitors. And I was like, this is really wild. But there was just no content. There was no RC universe or RC groups. So I said, what should I call it? So, well, I want to fly like Kike. He says, these stories can't go anywhere without Kike, because Kike was always my hero, always will be my hero. And I got to get to Kike at some point in this hour. But I said, he's always down on the deck. He's down on the deck. And I go, is it available? Of course, all the websites were available then. You could get Samsung.com, and sell it for millions later. So I got DownOnTheDeck.com. I thought that was perfect. And then I started putting more and more content, which was, basic stuff. All I had was a trainer. And so I did a couple things. I bought a Hangar 9 90. My second plane was the Hangar 9 98-inch Cap 232 with DA100. That was their second motor. That was only their second motor. They had the DA150 for a couple years, and they just released the DA100.
It's a big jump from a trainer.
Yeah, it's a big jump. So I put those two together, and I started putting pictures on the website. We actually made a little video, and then video was really hard to, put any bandwidth up and everything, but we did. And then I was getting hits, 1 million hits a day in a couple of months. So, wow. And 10,000 views a week. And it was wild. And then I got a call from some guy. His name was Mike McConville. He says, I work for Horizon. If we sent you a Taylorcraft, would you put it on that website? And I go, the website's like 2 pages of HTML. And I go, sure. And that was it. That just got the whole thing rolling. Then it grew. A couple fun things I want to tell you about Down on the Deck. We had so much fun. Joe McBride, that's a fun story too. I met him. He was Southern California, like big 3D guy. And at that time, I was already getting to be the Northern California 3D guy, because very few guys could 3D. It was a fun time. Now you really got to be pretty special, to get any attention.
What year was this? Like 2005 or so?
No, 2001. 2001. Okay. Like there was a video online, a really blurry little video of Airplane Blaine Austin on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. And everybody thought he did clinics, and everybody thought he was the stuff. And he came with a big old carton. He came down like maybe 20 feet high in a Harrier, not even hover, just in a Harrier, and wobbled all around and flew out. And we all went crazy. We went, this is the greatest thing we ever saw. Mm-hmm. So me and Joe, we learned the torque roll in 2001. And so it's a big deal up here. Basically, very few people are doing it anywhere, and a big deal down there. And then the Joe McBride story is fun. Smoking Joe McBride. He drove up on some business. He said, can I come by and meet you? And I said, sure. And he drove up, and he rolled down his truck window, and I looked in. I go, you are such a pretty man. And he's like, hey, maybe we won't hang out. So, but yeah, we became real good friends. And then he saw Down on the Deck. Well, that's really how he knew of me. And then he wanted to do something like it. So he started Team Flying Circus. And, but he just wanted it strictly for fun, which is pretty much what I was doing too. Like I never tried to make it a business. I got to tell you a story on that too. But then Joe, ended up, Flying Giants was, one of the guys that was initially with Joe doing the HTML. He started Flying Giants, and the Flying Giants really took off, but he was thinking business. Joe was just thinking fun. But all those websites, and then RC Universe started right then too. And then all those guys talked to us and knew us, and Steve Kranitz and everybody who was involved back then with the software. But then the Down on the Deck was so cool. I spent so much time on it, like 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. I was always editing all the posts. I was always making sure that everything was upbeat. And then I'd make people fill out an application to be a member of we call it the pits, so like the pits at the flying field, or the discussion board. And you had to fill out, and you had to say your name, address, telephone number, email, put a recent picture of yourself, and you had to post with your picture and your name. So no trolls, no anonymous stuff. We knew who you were, and you could say what you wanted, but we all know each other, so we're not hiding behind a keyboard,
Yep.
there. And then it was really informative, really positive. Everybody loved it. And what I would do, since I wasn't about making money or anything, it was just for fun. Um, Back then, the website servers were more expensive than now. So I think it was like $3,500 a month. Like right now, I have
Wow.
johanrc.com, and it's like 400 a year. No, 3,500 a year. I meant, did I say a month? 3,500 a year. Now it's like 400 a year. But once a year, I would just make a post, and I would say, "Here's a PayPal button. The fees have come up again." And within like 30 minutes, I would have all the money. And I go, "That's enough. That's enough." And they go, "Oh, we
Wow.
can send you more." I go, "No, no, that's enough." And then I would pay that for the year. And then I had these Votex, like 6 of them from 3W. And one of them I wanted to sell. And then I said, "Well, I'll just raffle it to the guys." So the raffle went up to 12,000, and I went, "Oh, that's good. That's good. Let me just do the raffle today." And somebody had called some government agency that raffles are only supposed to be for charity. They're not for, profit. So I said, "Oh, I better take that down." So I took it down, and I wrote all the guys. I can't remember how many guys, because it was like $30 a ticket. So there was, well over 100 guys, like what, 400 guys? And I wrote them all, and they all said, "Keep the money. Just keep the money. Don't worry about it. We want to support the site." And I go, I couldn't possibly do that. So I had to write like 400 envelopes, 400 addresses, and 400 money orders out. I got to go to the post office for all this stuff. But to the man, everyone said to keep it. To the man, I gave them all their money back. But they were, we had a lot of fun. It was a good group of guys. And I guess you were kind of seeing that was going on back then too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I forget the dates, but I probably got into RC in like 2003, 2004 or so.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah,
at the beginning I was just doing some, typical trainer stuff, couple of rolls, nothing fancy. But I do very distinctly remember seeing some videos of the TOC 2002, I believe, from Down on the
yeah,
Deck, because I remember they had like, the
yeah.
downonthedeck.com at the very beginning, the intro. And I think that's the first time I saw 3D flying. That's the first time I saw flying freestyle to the music. And I think that's where when something clicked inside, it's like, oh, I didn't know that airplanes could do anything even close to that. And I think that's when I started to look into getting an aerobatic plane, a 3D plane, and figure out how to learn those maneuvers, right? So I
So
remember back then looking at a lot of your videos. I definitely remember those Votex and some Aeroworks videos, and I remember a bunch of videos from Flying Circles too with Joe, and I remember
yeah,
they did like 2 or 3 instructional
really good
videos.
instructional videos, huh? Yeah,
Yeah,
they did
I don't
GoPro.
think they did many, but they were very good. They had also the stick cam. I think that's the first time I saw that. So I think a lot of those things were super useful for me for just learning purposes, and also as an inspiration for later. That I ended up creating a website in Spain, which was like the Spanish language flying circles or down in the deck, with forum,
Yeah.
with tutorials, with reviews. And I guess nowadays now with SkyboundRC, right? The same general idea, just in YouTube.
Well, yeah, watching your videos the last year, you definitely paid it forward. Your videos are amazing. The instruction's so good. You're very
Thank
smart.
you.
You're very smart person. But yeah, the what was funny was to see that stuff. I thought at the time, I've always, given Down the Deck credit for demystifying, because people thought that kind of stuff was impossible. I always talk about Damon Parker at my flying field. He was an unlimited IMAC pilot, really cool guy. And he goes, "Oh, I want to do that too." And he just installed his cardan up about 200 feet. He just kind of went into a harrier a little bit, and he felt the wingtip start to wiggle. And he goes, "Ooh, I hate that feeling." And he just went back to flying IMAC. So at that time, it's all what you see, like 4 minute mile, everything else. It's, when you see these things, then that becomes the new normal. But nobody had seen them. I remember flying. So yeah, point is, we help demystify all that stuff. I always kind of, took some joy, some solace from knowing that we help people have more fun, with the hobby. But I always, like I said, I looked to, and you saw the TOC videos because I had just been in the hobby 3 months, and I already knew about the TOC, and I said, we're going. And it's a good thing that I went, because it was the last one, because Bill Bennett
Hmm.
died. And I think a lot of people now don't know. I always talk about him because I think people don't know how we got to this point. People don't know why we have these Xtreme Flight and Skywing planes. We wouldn't have these planes without Bill Bennett. Nobody was pushing forward on that kind of level. But, back in the 90s to get $50,000, first prize, it was a big time incentive for these guys to push the limits, and then it inspired everybody and people bought more planes and the planes got better. And, it was the TOC, changed everything. But before that, and when the TOC started in the 70s, guys were flying for the worlds and everything. They're flying these crappy glow planes that, with 80-inch wingspans that weigh 35 pounds, with a gallon of glow fuel in them.
Mm-hmm.
So, that really changed everything. But back to Kike, I always loved Kike, and he's the one that inspired me to want to do all this stuff. And the guys that have heard me for years have heard me say this 100 times, but I used to watch all these videos, prop wash videos, and a couple other companies had VHS tapes, back then you could buy. And Kike at the events, like in the late 90s, and he's hovering this plane around, and he's making it look amazing with a 3W60 single. And after the event, they interview him and they say, Kike, it's so amazing. You can hover this thing, you're so low to the ground. And how are you able to do these things? I just love Kike. And he goes, with his accent and everything, goes, first of all, you must know what it is you are doing. I just think that's the greatest thing. Plus, it turns out, it sounds so simple, but it's so true. And we talk about geometry, linkages, linearity, resolution, mechanical advantage.
That's definitely the other big thing that I remember very well, kind of picking up from you and from Down on the Deck, because after flying a trainer and doing some basic aerobatics, I bought like a few small used airplanes that were technically aerobatic but were not really aerobatic. They were more like scale models of an aerobatic plane that didn't fly well at all. But eventually I got some like CA models, like small, like 3D, those like profile style planes with the super like wide wings, very flat. But then when I went to do my very first like gas airplane, it was like a 86 inches, something like that, extra, with a ZDZ 80. I wanted to make sure that things were done correctly. So I remember spending a lot of time in flying circles, a lot of time in Down on the Deck, trying to learn how to properly set up a gas plane, servo selection, like all those things were very new to me for this big of an airplane. And I remember seeing a lot of your videos about how to set up. You had like this wing with like 2 or 3 servos, how to make sure that things, that the servos are not going to be fighting each other and you're going to kill the servos on day one, right? And I remember you had the protractors on all the servos. Like I definitely remember learning a lot about that kind of setup, mechanical geometry, servo resolution, all those things back then from that. And those are things that still today I use, and still today I see lots of people either not thinking about it at all or thinking about it but still making mistakes because they have some misunderstandings.
Yeah. You know me that way, and anybody that's ever listened does too. And I've always been OCD about the linkages. The cool thing is, like you say, you go to the field, and you can understand. I talk about this. Guys want to fly. So you get a plane, even though they're so easy now, it still takes time, and you just want to go fly. You're a new plane, so taking too much time with this stuff, it gets challenging. You just want to get out there and have fun. And so you will see guys even today that don't do a very good job of it. But the big thing that's changed, and the reason probably that I got so into it when I did, was the manufacturers now are onto it. They've been onto it for a while. So even when the guys do kind of a, quick assembly on their planes, they're so much closer than they used to be. They're probably going to get it pretty good. But there's things I'll talk about, things we used to see, and then the few things. I think there's like 3 things now that you'll see guys still doing. But we used to see the control horns were in the wrong place. And Kike wrote an article. It was either in AMA Magazine or RC News. I think it was AMA Magazine. And I still have the pages. I post them from time to time. And he was on to the geometry because by default, we're not linear. When the servo arm's rotating, in a circle, it's going to have more travel, where it's closer to center, and there's going to be less travel. As it moves further away, it's being less effective, on the arm. You get to the end, you're pivoting all this direction and the arm's not moving, so, and in the middle, it's moving the most. So it's nonlinear to begin with. And then you get into these angles where you either have leverage or you don't have leverage. You have an angle that's prying up on the servo arm, wearing out the output gear or not. And so back then, the big thing was, where's the control horn location? And also the big thing, and the guys weren't onto it, and we were doing a lot of your own. We would have to, even on an ARF, what was called an ARF back then, you'd have to set your own motor box, you set your engine alignment incidences, and then we'd adjust those after flight. We'd adjust a degree up or down, we'd tune them in, and then you'd have to hinge yourself, and you'd have to put the control horns in. A lot of times we used the Vibro bolts, and so it became this, there was room for error. There was a lot more room for error. But the manufacturers got on to doing a much better job of that. But also, I want to mention before I get to what's going on now, the servos too. The servos were very nonlinear out of the box. I would take all the best servos from Futaba, JR, Aerotronics. Aerotronics is gone now. High Tech. And I would put them on a 12-inch wire on a large protractor. And I'd set them in there and I'd turn them to neutral from their factory setting, and then go full deflection on a radio set 100, 100. And they're all over the map. And then when you change the subtrim, then they significantly changed the linearity left and right. But they were wild. And now that's all improved so much. So a lot of these things are not, as important as they were then. The reason I got into it was because it was, really needed at that time. But the things I see today, still going on, I see a lot of guys that, quickly throw their linkages together and the linkages are binding. I see that all the time. So they didn't take their time. They didn't make sure that the ball was free. They didn't ensure that everything's lined up right to where it's free and then it's moving easily. I see some of them that you have to push so hard. It's amazing, at the flying field on relatively new planes. And that can't be good, if you're really having to push hard. The one that's been consistent, because it's always been up to the user from day one, it still is up to the user. And so, I think Xtreme Flight and Skywing pretty quickly won't even be up to the user. I think they're going to have fully assembled planes, so the servos will be in there. Probably the ones that they want, and probably within a couple of years, it's going to be you order what you want. So you're going to get a JR, you're going to get a ZDZ engine, you get whatever you want. They're just going to mount it all up for you. But the throttle, you pretty much have to set that up yourself. And that's the one I've consistently seen from back in the day to today, and it's still the same numbers. They'll go, well, my throttle is not linear, and all that stuff. And I go, well, let me see your radio. I go, show me your endpoints. And you'll see 30, 70. That's like the most typical one. 31, 70, the other, off of 0. And I go, how's that going to be linear? And how's that going to have any kind of good resolution? How are you going to be smooth? This gets, I could talk for hours. You know me. So this gets, I'm sidetracking already, but this gets to when I watch what's happened now. To me, I'm so excited about what's going on now since I've been back to last year. And it's always been fun. I have fun every time I come fly. And I had fun with all that stuff in the beginning and learning about, Kike and all the boys and the TOC and learning how to fly precision and learning how to build, learning electronics. But then, now it reminds me of other things in life where everybody thinks it's dead, and then it grows again. It burgeons again. It jumps forward. And, with flying, it was like there was flying on wings. Then, by the time you saw me, and then really right before me with Kike, they started stall flight. So the plane would be stalled and they'd have a flight that way. And then you thought, what can you do with this? Like, we got to a point in like 2004, 2005, how long can you torque roll? It's pretty boring. And then for me, it was Leesburg. Now, other guys talk about other guys that they saw at that time that led the way. But I went to the XFC in 2003. And Leesburg was there, and he was the first guy I saw doing fast rolls. It wasn't quite a rifle roll, but it was real close. And he was doing
the starts,
yeah, loops and rolls and real fast and alternate changing directions. And it's a funny story too. People have heard this story from me a lot. He got like eighth. He was not real happy. He was light years ahead of everyone else. He should have won, and second place should have been distant. But the judges just they didn't know what they were looking at.
They were not ready.
Yeah, and they just weren't ready for that. And then yeah, and it kept progressing. But then it got to be I'm trying to remember the years, like mid-teens, 2014, 2015. The Jonal, it's just everybody rifle rolling. So they're just bolting around rifle rolling everywhere. So it kind of got to be like the torque roll thing, where how long can we watch you just rifle roll like full throttle up and down the runway? How long can we watch you torque roll full throttle? And each time we thought, well, that's the end of flying. It's not going to improve. People are going to buy less, and there's not going to be new people that are better. And then I had my layoff, and then again, like usual, and then I came back last year, and I'm watching all the new guys, and I mean, since I seen him as a young kid, Spencer Norquist I just thought he's, you know, original and very special looking and has a great look. But and it's still he's still my favorite. But the watch, but I had to give it to Santi Perez, and they're all flying similar maneuvers and stuff. But Santi really to me embodies what the new style is. So it's not torque rolling. It's not rifle rolls. It's way more complicated, and it's full envelope. That's what I love about it. It's hard to imagine what's going to come out in 10 years from now. How they're going to beat Santi, because it's such a full envelope. He's flying fast. He's flying slow. He's doing everything 10 feet high. He's doing these cartwheels that the planes were never designed to do, and they look kind of simple, like everything does to anybody who doesn't know. Like even when we first torque roll, they just thought you hit a button. Rifle roll, you hit another button. And Santi does one of these little cartwheel flip turns like 5 feet high with a 35% plane with a 100cc engine on it, and you think, oh yeah, I just hit a button. He did that. Try to do it 10 feet high. They're very complicated. You're in and out of the throttle. You're in and out at specific times, and you're in and out of the aileron, rudder, and elevator, all at very specific times. And you're controlling your inertia in a very, very fine-tuned, pinpoint way. And it just looks like a little rotation, but it ain't. It's really something. And so the way he's coordinating all those, the way he's combining all the maneuvers, the way he's using the full box, the full envelope, I never would have guessed it, that 10 years ago that this is where it would go. So very impressive to me, and makes the hobby fun again. You got a new inspiration to see what you can do. Of course, I'm always like 10 years behind, so I'm just trying to get what the stuff you guys were doing 10 years ago. Because you were rifle rolling 10 years ago. So I'm just trying to learn now.
that was so it's funny because I think in some ways, yeah, but I was flying a lot maybe from like 2005 to 2010. I was competing in Europe and things like that, and I was doing, again, it's not like a full speed rifle roll because back then the planes were not this crazy fast. They were fast for rolling if you're full throttle, but not like a pilot RC or an Xtreme Flight these days. But then I stopped flying pretty much from 2010 to 2000, like last year, basically. So in some ways, it's been the same in terms of getting back into the hobby, finding people like Santi, like Jace, Ducia, and seeing the more not just the rifle rolls, but all the other like extreme aerobatic type maneuvers, but also making sure they are very precise.
Can we come up with better names than the rolling no name? Is this all we can come up with? And wing slaps and rolling no names.
I think the first that nobody puts a name on things until somebody just adds some random name and then it sticks. But it's been really cool to see how much you can get out of one of these planes. I think, of course, the equipment getting better, like better servos, more precise and stronger, more reliable equipment. The airframes are much stronger now. Like I remember, the last plane that I was using back then in like 2010 for freestyle was a Hangar 9 Extra 260. It was like a white and yellow and blue, I believe. I think that was like a Mike McConville design. And I remember pretty early having to replace the wing tube from the stock aluminum to a carbon fiber because on like some relatively simple knife edge spin, I think the wing tube kind of bent, kind of in a V shape. So I had to like order from the US to Spain like a carbon fiber tube. But nowadays the planes are able to take pretty much anything. Like it doesn't matter if you get a pilot, Xtreme Flight, a Skywing. You
You can't break
can
it, not in the
you
air.
can do like a full throttle blender knife spin, and the plane doesn't care. It's crazy. Like when I
It
got
is.
back into it last year, some of these maneuvers I had to like train myself to be okay with doing those things, because not just the skill but also the thinking that the plane is gonna break was keeping me from like doing some of these things. And eventually by repetition and by seeing other people do it, it's like, okay, I guess it's possible. So let's try it. And now I'm getting more used to it. But it's crazy how much abuse they take these days.
No, I'm with you. I mean, we used to be so cautious. We were afraid of our servos breaking. If we went fast all the time, just fast, straight and level fast, it was not uncommon to have the aileron servos break and start to flutter. And when you're going full speed and you're in straight and level and your ailerons flutter, the plane blows up into a pile of confetti in like
Mm-hmm.
3 seconds. It looks like confetti drifting down. Um, so it just, you have that in your mind, and that's with the state of the art servos. And we would gang 4 of them on each aileron and we'd still have a wing flutter, an aileron flutter. So that's, yeah, you had to get, like you said, I had to get over all that. And then the planes, you were always worried about their wings breaking.
Mm-hmm.
My cardan broke. I had a brand new cardan that broke. The wings just broke off. I was doing a Harry roll and they just broke. So those things are in the back of your mind. And but these new planes, I when I came back, I was doing the same thing, and I was going, um, the this thing's gonna break. I gotta take it easy. And I go, you're the guys would tell me you're not even close, And then I do a little harder maneuver, and I go, oh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
so worried, And they go,
Yeah.
you can't break it, and
That's really cool.
you
I think
push like
nowadays it's
you
cool
can.
to see. It's cool to see how both like pilots and the gear we're using are like pushing each other a little bit. Right, like we're definitely always trying to make the most of the equipment and always asking for a bit more,
Yeah,
a bit more reliability or a bit more precision, or what ounces per inch we get from the
we were
servos.
careful with our engines too.
Mhm.
We didn't want to heat them up. And when I saw the videos when I came back this time more so than ever with the planes and the engines, wow. But the guys are just on the motor all the time. In these tumble maneuvers, it's just whining all the time. It's in a
Mhm.
um, bogging. It's
Yeah.
bogging. And they're just full throttle. And yeah, you're like, how does the engines put up with this
Yeah.
too?
You were talking before about flying in the XFC. What year was that?
2003.
2003. What I'm kind of curious. That's been just over 20 years. What plane and what gear did you have for that competition? I'm pretty sure that would look
I
very
brought
different from today.
It is. I brought 218-inch cardons. We could talk about this forever too. The setup and the build on those, and that was the plane to bring. And if you brought a 40% cardan, edge or extra, you're automatically gonna get a better score. Because it was not the favoritism or anything. I won't say. I mean, there's always favoritism in politics, but it's really that was what was considered the coolest thing to have, like from by everybody. So you were kind of legit. You had the right frame of mind. You got the right equipment, like you were supposed to. And but Leesburg, he brought a Dalton that was automatically against him, but at least it was a 40%. But you could go now, like Jace would have got last. That's the fun part. It wasn't a politic thing. Like Jace would have got last because if you teed up a third scale, yeah, no, you're
Not taken
automatically,
seriously, too small.
yeah, not taken seriously whatsoever. It wouldn't have mattered what you did with it. It's a third scale. And then, yeah, all that flying fast. What's that about? So that was different. But I brought two Carden 40% extras. They're 118 inches, uh, and that was my first high tech servo. So they were all outfitted with 5945s, which I programmed. Um, and yeah, it was different. They did not have the quality. They didn't have the power, but they didn't have the quality that they do now either. But they were good, and the programming really helped. But that was kind of the standard. So I brought two of those, and I would say 70% of the pilots were flying a 40% carton.
How many
Um,
servos did you have in that plane?
I had 18, so
So that's 18. Oh, how many servos do you have in rudder?
you got 5 on the rudder,
Wow.
Or on each aileron.
That sounds like a lot of fun to set up.
Yeah, a lot of fun to set up, and that's when I really got into it. Oh, we could get back to that too. So the throttle linkage is a thing I see, but I think the biggest thing that guys could make huge improvement on is the rudder with push pull. So the guys in smaller than 100cc or even 100cc, they're using single servos a lot. But you'll see some of the guys with 100cc will use two servos, push pull, and then the guys with 170cc will typically always have a push pull. And that's something that is the worst offender, and it's just as bad or worse than the worst stuff from 20 years ago in the basic geometry on that situation. A lot of it has to do with where they're putting the control horns. The control horns can easily, well, that's not really an accurate way to put it. It is a challenging situation to begin with, push-pull on a rudder. So but you can put the control horn in a place that'll help you somewhat. But it's real easy to figure. All you guys with push-pull, go to Google Images. Just go to Google and type in that you want a protractor image, and all these images will come up. Pick one you like. And then on your printer, hit scale it to the size that you want. And then stick it on your plane to where the center of the protractor is your output shaft on that servo. And try on the right side of your plane, and you'll see that you're traveling 25, 30 degrees one way because you tuned it with your radio or whatever device you're using for programming. And then you're going 50 to 60 degrees the other way. And the problem is that's not such a big deal, even on a wing, as long as they're all the same. Your plane's not going to be axial. It's going to be harder to make it axial and all those things, but you're not going to bind the servo. But you can imagine on your rudder, if you're 30 degrees one way and 60 degrees the other, it's the opposite on the other side. So when you're going 30 here, you're going 60 there. When you're going 30 here, you're going 60 there. And that's a bind situation.
Yeah, whatever it is.
That's where your control horns are too. Do you see broken control horns? I see guys post broken control horns on these planes all the time. On their rudders. Never on their ailerons, never on their elevators. It's always on their rudders.
Yeah, I think the rudder is particularly bad because you have almost anything that is not linear is gonna be the opposite on the other servo, and they're pretty much connected as a single unit, right? Like in a wing, still not ideal, but at least you have a bit of flex on the wing. Yeah. These are like big wings. There's a good amount of distance, and the aileron will flex a little bit.
It could all be wrong together, on one wing. Yeah, they can all be wrong together, so they're not
they're
fighting
all doing it on the same orientation. One thing I tend to do, actually, same concept but maybe different execution, is rather than using the protractor, is actually just doing it powered on. So one servo at a time, obviously. But basically you say, hey, I want, let's say 80% up and down or 100% up and down. And see what you get, right? And see that maybe when you go to the left, you get like 40 degrees. When you go to the right, you get 60. And that usually, to me, means that you have to either extend or reduce the length of the rod, modify the center position of the servo, and that will drastically change things, right? I think that's something that I see. I think one of the typical things I see the most, and I see this mistake even on people online that are thinking about this. It's not people that didn't think about it. It's actually people thinking about it and trying to do the right thing, that they focused a lot on, the servo arm should be, for example, in a wing or an elevator, the servo arm should be perpendicular to the servo case or should be parallel to the hinge line. And yeah, it's more or less going to be somewhere on there, but the hinge line or the servo arm case doesn't have any meaning at all here, right? I think there is like a ton of other factors that you are not considering there, like the height of the horn or the distance, like horizontal distance between the hinge line and the horn rotation point. Like all those things are going to be different on every single plane, even if you have the same model. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about here, that in the rudder in particularly is particularly important because you can like destroy the servos right away if you have two of them.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one of the funny things too, is that the same OCD, anal, perfectionist kind of mentality also leads some guys to make everything 90 because they're like, I'm going to make this
Looks
perfect.
nice.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it looks really nice. Um, one of the things about what I always talk about where the control horn is, because you can get, you have to, you're hoping to get them linear so that the arm travels the same distance from neutral each way. But then a lot of guys get that, they will learn that and they'll adjust. Because Kike, like I said, he's got an article from 2002 that explains this with pictures. So he's got it adjusted. But then what they'll lack, if they don't understand everything, like you said, there's a lot of variables. If they don't understand all the variables, they won't get mechanical advantage. And the reason is if they adjust to where they're getting equal travel, but then the push rod and the servo arm will line up straight, which is a problem. And what they'll do is they'll use a longer servo arm. And then that way they won't have that situation. So now they do have equal and they don't have a leverage problem. So they're okay.
Mm-hmm.
But now they don't have mechanical advantage. So their servos are taking more abuse and they don't have the resolution. So I always talk about it. You're looking for geometry, but you're also looking for mechanical advantage and resolution. You want your servos to be traveling more than 100 on your endpoints, on your ATVs. Then you know you have resolution and mechanical advantage. If you're getting everything where it looks right to you, but you're in your radio, you're 190, let's say, or 95, now your servo is working harder than mine because mine's going to be like 120. It's not going to be working as hard as yours. Because it's traveling the same distance, but with a shorter arm. And I can get the shorter arm and get the more mechanical advantage and more torque because I've moved the control horn over.
It's tricky. I think it's tricky to learn the way it's supposed to be, and once you know it, it's also tricky to execute. Like sometimes you have limitations unless you want to get into like repositioning the horn that came from the
And the
factory, which
control,
I have
the
seen you
hard point.
do. Um,
Yeah, I've done it. And the hard point too. A lot of times the hard
yeah,
point's not there.
yeah,
So now you're ripping covering off and gluing hard points in, putting covering back on. So
yeah.
I take some shortcuts too. I just go, it's fine.
Yeah, I never gone that far. I always try to get it the best I can without like doing major modifications. Like if I have to make major modifications, probably that's not the right plane for me, anyways. Um, but
That's what's good. Like I said, the manufacturers have really come along on all this stuff. They're real close now. Some
yeah,
of them, a lot of the parts are right on the money. So that's really been good. I was gonna say
yeah.
on planes too. What's funny is I call them trash can planes. I bought two trash can planes recently. I have all these fancy planes, but I was nervous about getting real low doing rifle rolls because to me, when you're learning rifle rolls and you want to go low, I consider it very high risk. We talk about Brian Mack and stuff that recently he said it's not a hard maneuver, but it's hard to get comfortable down low, and especially when you're learning. I think it's very high risk, and I didn't want the shiny new planes, to work with down there. So a funny thing happened we were just talking about the improvement in the flight envelope and the way the guys are flying now. Um, I bought a plane for $900, a 35%, ready to go, that I had actually assembled and maiden for the guy 9 years ago, and he'd already had it for 3 years. So it's a 12-year-old plane, and new in box. He had it sitting in the garage. And when I made it for him, I thought, ooh, this is kind of unstable, because I've been flying in these big 40% cards, and here it was an extreme flight, And he flew it, and he didn't like it, so he never flew it again. He said, it's too slippery. I can't even land it. So he just put it away in the garage for 9 years, and then I came back in to fly again, and I bought it from him. And now I'm flying it. It's so stable, it's ridiculous. It's like stuck in the mud. It's like, wow, this is so stable. But the new planes have gotten to be so unstable. They specifically have made them not stable. And it feels comfortable to fly something stable, but then it won't do any of the new maneuvers.
Yeah, they're pretty good for basic 3D maneuvers, like more traditional low and slow. But when you want to do something a bit more like extreme aerobatics type flying, they don't roll fast. They don't tumble as well. They don't have that.
Yeah, they won't break loose. Yeah, I know.
So let's talk about rifle rolls. So you've been at it for I think you go back into RC last year, right, or so?
Yeah, I got back last February and, started assembling some planes. Sometime around May, June, I said, you know what? It's like unfinished business because in 2015, I tried it. There's a video on my YouTube channel and I did give it a go, and I had a 110-inch Xtreme Flight Yak 54 and I was 300 feet high and I right across the field. And then one of the guys goes, you did that perfect. Just do it 5 feet high like you want. And I go, you don't know what I was feeling when I was doing that. So that's where I left it. And so it was like unfinished business. And then when I came back this time, it's not like, solving world hunger or something, but I did, have a certain amount of interest in finishing that little project. And I built upwards of 20 planes in the last year. I mean, try to do that and have any time to fly, but I'm writing some articles right now for Hobby Merchandiser magazine, and it's Why We Fly. And there's just a lot of reasons to fly. Like I really wanted to focus on rifle rolling, but I had so much fun meeting you, talking to you. I had fun going to these events. I had fun with the guys at the field. I had fun at the field. We have such a amazing, lucky field to be down here in SoCal and have a field like that. And all these new planes and the new flight envelopes and the new guys, the new elite guys like Brian Mack, Matt Springer, and all these different guys. I'm forgetting his name right now. It's so dumb, but he answers the phones at Xtreme Flight.
Antonio?
Yeah, Antonio D'Souza. Oh my gosh, he's totally elite. And so this whole thing's exciting, so there was a lot to get distracted from just the rifle rolls, but as much as I could be tune into them and not be so ADD, I have, so I have spent a certain amount of time, and I'm rifle rolling now just yesterday, but I've been doing it for about a month. I posted a video yesterday where I'm basically 5 feet high, rifle rolling down the runway full throttle, and that was the dream. The dream was 20 feet. If I could just be 20 feet high, full throttle, rifle rolling down the runway, I could die happy. And so I got it. So I think I'm at, I think I can talk about it. I think I'm legit at this point. I hope to demystify. I wanted to demystify 3D back in the day, and I think we did. A lot of people said we did. A lot of people gave us credit for that. And I like to demystify the rifle rolling thing. And I talk about in my videos this last year that what I've heard, like talking to the elite guys that are brilliant at it. So the guy I really love to watch fly, Spencer all around definitely, and then Jake Arnold. He's just it's machismo, man. It's machismo. It's just tall. It's like real man flight, and he's so aggressive, and I would love to fly exactly like him. Like I would just take that. And so I messaged him. I became friends on Facebook, and I messaged him, and I said, well, how can you help me? I want to rifle like you. And he goes, well, I never really tried to learn. I go, oh, thanks a lot. He said, mostly I was just doing fun things with my friends. If it looked fun, we'd do it. So that's what he had for me. Thanks, Jake Arnold. But at the end of the day, that's what's really helped me. And I fly mostly with Joe McBride. You're really lucky this time. Last time I came out 10 years ago, he didn't go. He went like once. But now he's got inspired, and he's been out with me 2 or 3 times a week for the last year. And so we're working on it. And, in his own way, Jake was right. Like the stuff that when we don't try to be like anybody, but we're doing things that we think looks cool and it's fun to us, and we get better at those things quicker. And then Tim Cornette, he told me not much either, but he said, it gets to a point when you're doing these things like rifle rolling loops that you want to finish low. He said that you just have to commit to it. You already understand it and you've felt it before, and now you just want to do it low, and you have to tune everything out and just make a commitment, to that maneuver. Just stay in that maneuver. Just watch the plane, and stay in it. And he didn't explain all that like I just did. He just said, sometimes you got to stay committed. So that's all I got from him. But, that was kind of a big deal too. Spencer, we talked about 45 minutes on the phone, and he gave me a little more, and it was interesting. And I want to ask you too, what your experience was, but he said it took him 2 weeks because, you know, at the time he's what, 28, 30 now, 29, something like that. I don't know exactly, but it should be in there. So I think he learned it when he was like 12, 14, like all these other guys. So that's just, you know, that's a different time. But he said 2 weeks to get it, and then like 2 years to do everything he wanted to do with it, where he really had it refined in any kind of way that he wanted to do it. So that was very interesting too, to learn. But what I've talked about, and the guys that are watching this that have heard me talk the last year, they're going to go, yeah, I've heard all these stories already. But to me, it's absolutely one thing. You know, well, at least, you know, I'm always projecting. Everybody's always projecting because you can only project from yourself because you are, you know, I'm 64 years old. You know, like I'm, if I was 15, never lost anything in my life, and my dad was building my planes, and I had this great eyesight and all this stuff and great hand-eye coordination, I might talk just like Jake Arnold told me. I was just having fun. But, you know, if you're not an elite teenager, which I think that's the majority of us, you know, we're not elite teenagers, we're older than that, and maybe not elite. It was what I want to get to too was what because it plays off of that, is recently Joe McBride asked Bryant Mack, he said, you got any tips or trick? Me and Joe Hunter always trying to do this rifle rolling, and he goes, well, it's not even that hard. And you too, in your video is great. Yours is the best video by far on rifle rolling, is your video. But you talk about what a lot of guys talk about. If you can Harrier roll, you just do it faster. And but the thing is, if you're gonna, nobody cares if you rifle roll 300 feet high. So if you're gonna rifle roll under 20 feet, under 50 feet, even, to me the whole thing is, I think Bryant Mack was right that it is easy, you know. And if you can Harrier roll, if you could, I've always said from the beginning, if you can 4-point roll, you can do anything. 4-point roll is the beginning of all of it. And so if you could 4-point roll, yeah, you could rifle roll. Especially if you can Harrier roll, you can rifle roll. But if you're not an elite 14-year-old trying to pick it up, then how long is it going to take you to get comfortable under 50 feet? You know, under 40, under 30, under 20, but just under 100, for God's sake. You know, that's the thing I think those guys are missing, and maybe because they never went through it, you know, because of their age and everything.
Yeah,
but
yeah. I think there's different, like I think there's different layers to it, because I think for me, in some sense, you could say like, yeah, I also didn't like put.
You were a kid too, right? You were 19 when you learned to rifle.
Maybe like 20 or so, but yeah. But I think there's a couple of factors there. And it's like, for example, for a lot of those people, including myself, like I think we probably then go from one day to the next one into, oh, I want to learn how to do these crazy fast rifle rolls. I think it was much more progressive, right? Like probably when I started doing those type of things, I was really very comfortable doing any kind of like rolling Harriers, even rolling Harrier loops. But it's like not as fast, right? And the planes back there weren't as aggressive as they are today. So even if you are going at full throttle, I mean, you can see like the video from you yesterday, those are pretty low rifle rolls, but they're fairly slow if you compare it to like a
really slow
Jace Ducia type thing, right? And I think a lot of those things like have gotten faster over time. And for people like Jake Arnold, Ducia, they weren't doing the rifle rolls at the speed they're doing it today 5 or 10 years ago, right? It was slower. It was kind of rifle rolls, but it was slower. I think over time, the planes get a bit faster and a bit more aggressive, and then they take it to the next level even without thinking about it, right? I think that on top of it, a lot of those pilots, myself included, do a good amount of like simulator flying. And again, like even if you're not like consciously like trying to practice this, and you're getting a bit better each time you practice, right? And each time you're able to bring it a bit lower and a bit faster. So I think it's a bit more progressive. I still think that the key of all of this is getting knowing the basics, right? If you can roll in Harrier, that's 50% of the battle, and then it's just practicing so that you're able to do it a bit faster, getting comfortable to see the plane a bit lower. Because then the biggest problem is that, for me at least, the biggest two things are when you are going at really fast roll rates, things happen really, really quickly to the point that even visually it's hard to see what's going on. Like for me, my biggest constraint is just visually like see where the plane is at and not like lose focus for a second and mess up the timing. And two is that any mistake low to the ground will point the plane right to the ground immediately, right? It's not like a rolling Harrier, unless you're like scratching the plane, you have a lot of wiggle room. Like
So much.
you can, yeah, you can put 5 degrees of elevator or 45 degrees of elevator for like half a second, and it doesn't make a difference. It's okay. With rifle roll, you have to have everything spot on if you're going that low and that fast. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I thought do I still have it? So long. Oh, looky here. So long ago. This has not been out in 100 years. So yeah, I talk about this that in when we learned, me and Joe McBride, 2001, we learned a torque roll, and we were both new and everything. And so you look at the plane here on the ground, learning to hover and torque roll. One, I talk about it wasn't moving. It's not moving. It's going like this. It's not moving around. And you can, and everything happens super slow. And you can actually tilt to 45 degrees and you're fine. You can tilt to 70 degrees, you're fine. Just punch it and fly. You know, in rifle roll, you're going full throttle and you can't even drop 15 degrees. You just plow right into the ground.
Yeah, or what's worse is when you want to do something that is like going down, right? It's a loop with rifle rolls. So I remember my last freestyle when I was competing seriously in Europe, and this was basically like copy pasted from Mark Lisber. It's like going pretty fast at like medium altitude, and then do this like half a loop to do a pass over the runway,
Yeah.
and that half a loop doing rifle rolls. That's very scary because you
Yeah.
wanna adjust it so that you end up down on the deck, but
Yeah.
you don't wanna hit the ground, right? Because you're not turning too late.
You want too
And
much stuff.
I remember, I'm pretty sure you've seen it too. Like there's a video of Lisberg messing up the timing. Like I'm pretty convinced that's just a pilot error. That even somebody as good as Lisberg, Mark Lisberg, made a mistake there, lost the timer for just a fraction of a second, and instead of like recovering the plane ended up just going down and destroyed like a beautiful Dalton.
What was awesome was he had a backup plane, same, $15,000 Dalton with DA-200. Very next flight did the same thing, and he pulled it off. He didn't even back off. He didn't take that out of his routine or anything. But
Yeah,
if you watch that video of him crashing and him making it, the guys nowadays, like you, for instance, they could put you with the same plane, the same situation the day he crashed, you would never crash. You would never crash. It's so slow. And what you said is true too. And I didn't notice it, but you already have, but I didn't notice it until this new trash can plane. Because I'm like, this is an extreme flight. It's an extreme flight extra. And I have maximum roll rate that I can get out of this plane and these ailerons. And it's rolling so slow. So I went, I know Jace must have been, I knew he was rifle rolling at that time that plane came out. And he was like 14, 15, but he was rifle rolling. I think he was rifle rolling at 10, 12.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, let me find the videos on YouTube. And I found him. And it's going slow. It's just like you said, it wasn't this fast.
It was fast by that, but that time.
No standard. Yeah. When I used to watch Leesburg in the 2000s, I thought it was blistering. And I watch it, it's pokey slow. Like you would totally like it would be casual for you. And then yeah, like you said, you just mentioned a minute ago, and I think it's true too, because in 2000, the last I flew was in 2016, I think before I quit. I thought the guys were blistering too. And I watched the 2016 videos, which are 8 years old, and they're going slow. So it did, like you said, it progressed where they're going ultra fast now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is that even on those pilots that you call the elites, I think there's still even differences. Even those people that say it's easy, I don't think I've seen anybody rifle roll as fast as Jace Ducey does on a regular basis, or with that level of precision, or with that low altitude. Like I don't think I've seen anybody, and I think maybe the closest one I might have seen is Rio, the pilot RC team pilot from Thailand.
Yeah, he's good,
and that's pretty close second. So even for the top like 10 pilots out there, I still personally think there's like differences on
Level.
on the level of comfort and precision, because it's a really, really hard maneuver. I think when you get to any type of rifle rolls, it's hard, and when you go at the very, very max that the airplane can give you, especially the planes nowadays that roll really fast, I think it gets really extremely fast.
Yeah, it does. And I have 2 planes that roll so fast, it's crazy. And I'm looking forward to getting them down at the same level that I'm doing with the trash can plane now, which is a slow roll rate, and see if I can keep my mind together, because I can keep my mind together 100 feet up with those.
What I'm surprised, and I wanted to ask you about this with the trash can planes, is that you got those trash can planes to have something that is like more affordable, so that you are not so concerned about crashing, right? So you can practice, and once you get better, you go with the fancy planes. I'm surprised you haven't gone the route of a smaller plane, like the 67-inch airplanes from Pilot RC, Xtreme Flight, Skywind, doesn't matter.
Are those even real? Are little planes real?
They fly
Are you a real
extremely
person
well.
if you fly a little plane?
You would like them because they just throw them in the car, you're done. They're really so I'm mentioning that for 2 reasons. One, they are, they give you that affordable way to practice rifle rolls, so it's the same thing. And on top of it, you don't have the problem of a trash can doesn't roll as fast. So it's actually closer. But on top of it, because they're a bit smaller, they are actually able to roll even faster. So if you get comfortable with a 67-inch plane rifle rolling at full throttle, call me, because I want to see it. And 2, you will be able to nail those in the 100-inch plane, no problem. So
can a real man fly under 120 cc? I mean, I'm just saying.
If you want to have fun, you
No,
can.
okay. I bought and I own and have, and I'll be flying it next week. That's 60. Is it 61 or 60? It's the Skywing Edge plug and play.
Okay.
I think it's 61, something like that. You're right. It is an absolute blur. It looks like Tasmanian Devil. Like it is a blur.
Yeah, those you can go as fast as you want. And it's that will translate 100% to the big plane, and it will feel even easier. So
for me, and back to my whole story on the rifle rolls, and it could be wrong, and I always say in my videos and stuff that nobody may care, because I'm not sure what the percentage of people over 30, 35 who are trying to rifle roll. I don't see anybody. I don't see any videos. Me and Joe talked about this. We only see guys that are look awesome rifle rolling like you, or we don't see them rifle rolling. You don't see anybody rifle rolling badly.
I think that's pretty common. I wouldn't say just with rifle rolls, but with extreme aerobatics in general. You rarely see somebody learning a new maneuver. Like for the most part, you see really, really top 10, or you see somebody trying to learn how to Harrier. There's very little in between, which is interesting.
That's it. That's the whole thing. And but I would say, so what I always talk about is maybe my opinion on this doesn't demystify anything, doesn't matter to anyone because nobody's doing it. But maybe they are. But for all the guys that are over some certain age, I don't know what that age is. Could be 25, really, but let's call it 30. All the guys over 30, and just as a personal projection, here is the most difficult thing. Now, so far, Joe McBride has not spent that much time actually doing it, and he's not doing it. And I don't know anybody else who's doing it. What I'm getting at is it was the most uncomfortable, painful, not fun thing I've ever done in radio control. And other things, sure, but not in radio control. Radio control has pretty much always been fun. We learned to hover and torque roll and Harrier rolling loops in short order, and we were never scared. And we were a bit younger. We were 40. He was 35, but we were just not scared. I spent quite a few hours of the last year being scared, and I don't like being scared. And it wasn't fun, and you want to quit. You want to quit doing it. You not quit flying. You have all kinds of fun flying. Guys are applauding for all these things you do. And then you're doing this one thing. And I'm sitting here, I started it at 300-400 feet, because even at 200, it's sketchy. At 150, 100 feet, you can actually stuff a plane in a second at 150 feet. And now here I am 4 feet, and I don't feel like I can stuff it. But that took a lot of just being really uncomfortable, and I would be down 60, 80 feet and just slight blip and almost crash. From 80 feet, I'd almost crash on a slight blip. And so all the time I'm flying, I was just scared, flying scared. And I had to do it for a long time. And that's what the books on the brain talk about, that you will overcome that, but it takes hours of time. So you can't think it through, you can't prepare it through, you're going to have to live it through,
Yeah.
and if I'm right, a teenager who has no bad experiences, dad built his plane, it's not going to be as significant for him. But if you're over 30, and you're much more involved in the what if game, and you're going to be scared. And then why would you do something you're scared? Especially like Joe McBride to talk about, which is pretty much the same as me. He can go out to any flying field and put on a beautiful demo. People asking, he gets paid to put on demos. He flew for Dunkirk. He flew all the planes in Dunkirk. The radio control planes for
Yep.
that movie is awesome. They paid him to do that. They paid him to do all that stuff. He puts on great shows. He flew in the Tucson Shootout freestyles. Everybody raved about him and stuff. And so he can go out and have fun like that, and then push the things that he already knows how to do. He could push those, like make those harder, make those more challenging, make those look better, and just enjoy that whole time. Or he can be at 400 feet, just looking like a rank amateur, because that's what we talked about, like with Kyle Washness and stuff. Kyle Washness to me is the most natural talent of anybody's ever flown. And to me, what I always say about Kyle is he has more control of a completely stalled plane that's not moving than anybody that I've ever seen. If that plane's not moving, he's got so much control. He can do things I haven't seen anybody else do with a stalled plane. But his flying is beautiful and it looks very majestic. But he has no interest in rifle rolling, because of the way that it looks. And we would have guys. There's probably still guys like that, but I definitely remember the guys back in 2001. They'd come to the field with their small planes and they just buzz around super fast and just turning like crazy weird turns and stuff, and it was just awful, but they were going fast and it was an adrenaline rush for them and they had fun, but it looked like crap. And so then, and you knew they weren't skilled. The point is, you knew that was not a skilled guy. He was having fun. That's great for him. So you're doing these rifle rolls 400 feet up. Literally, it's not even an exaggeration. Like you start getting safe around 400 feet. 200, even at 200, you're starting to not be safe. But at 400, you're getting safe. You are safe. So you're way up there, you can't see, and you're just buzzing around trying to do these specific rolls. It doesn't look like anything that anybody watching. It doesn't look like anything to you either. You're not impressed. They're not impressed. And so this is what I talk about. You're going to have to do that, unless you're a kid and you can just get it. And then as you bring it down, I'm repeating myself, but as you bring it down, the pucker factor, it's just pain. It's not fun. And then, but if you stick with it long enough, your brain will adjust. But it was much harder for my brain to adjust to that than to adjust even to a hairy rolling loop on the deck.
Yeah. Well, it's all relative too, because I'm pretty confident that for a lot of people, they feel exactly the same way about this with rolling Harrier, with a hover, with a torque roll. Like for them, it's still very scary to bring it like a few feet lower.
Yeah.
And I think your point about like age, I know that it's a fact that like the older you get, probably your reflexes are worse, your eyesight is worse. I'm sure that plays a factor, but my personal theory is that I think more often than not, younger people are more interested in learning rifle roll, snap roll, whatever it is, like this new maneuver, than older people. There's a 30-year-old or a 60-year-old, doesn't matter. I think the younger people tend to be more interested in it, and they end up, even with a try, putting more time into it. They're less afraid of looking a bit goofy when they're trying it way up high, or they are more up for trying it in the simulator. And at the end of the day, they basically end up putting more focused effort into the maneuver. I think that it's very common to see people in the flying fields anywhere just always doing the same thing, right? Like they always do the same thing. And they put a lot of effort into buying a new plane because it's the new version and they think it's gonna make them a better pilot. But then they don't put any effort in the flying skill side of things, right?
No, I agree 100%. And I read a lot of books on the brain and psychology and human nature, and they talk about the 1.5-year plateau too with people. That you get to this plateau in 1.5 years, you're about as proficient as you're going to be, unless you bear down. and then people will just level out there. They don't want to. They don't have that same interest, like you talked about learning all those kind of things. And yeah, for sure, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that that's one of the multiple reasons why I wanted to have you here, because I think it's cool that see somebody that is not the not the 20-year-old, not even a
What do you
30-year-old,
mean?
that
I'm
still
not
well
even a 50-year-old.
you were already a pretty good pilot from a while ago, but on top of it you are putting the time to learn new maneuvers that are not easy, that are not comfortable, and you're like
That's
showing
not
that
comfortable.
it can be done, right? Like not everybody's gonna become top 5 pilot in the world, but
Yeah.
anybody can drastically improve their skills if you try hard enough, right?
I think so, yeah. And then this article series I'm writing on why we fly, the two words I'm going to use right off the bat are the satisfaction and reward. And I think that when we build stuff, all of us modelers, I think a lot of us modeled when we were kids. I mean, I had little plastic models when I was 4 years old that I glue together and paint. And so it's innate, and I think we like to build. Guys like to build anyway. And so there's tremendous amount of satisfaction from building, um, and making the electronics work. I remember the first time I made anything work with radio control. It's just so fascinating that the radio control worked. The technology worked, and then learning the maneuvers, all that stuff. That you get a lot of satisfaction, a lot of reward from doing it. And it's just I was still suffering 2 months ago, with rifle rolls, and it's just now in the last 2 months, especially a month ago, especially the last 2 weeks, it's all paying off. And I feel huge satisfaction, huge reward. It really feels good. So that's what you're doing the work for.
Yeah,
Get that
I
feeling.
think, and that's also one of the cool things about like I like all kinds of airplanes. I fly jets. If I have like the time and money, I would like be flying gliders and scale and everything. But the one thing that always takes me back to or gets me back to into aerobatics, that you have such a wide range of options, and it's like you never feel like you are done, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm
No, it's
pretty
like
sure
golf.
even the top like pilot in the world or top 2 pilots in the world, they still feel like they have room for improvement. You can be more precise. You can
Yeah.
do it in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
You can do something new or something different, something lower. There is a lot of opportunity to learn and to improve and to do new stuff.
That's why I've always stayed with aerobatics too. The jets look cool. All kinds of other planes that I could talk about, but the scale planes, warbirds. The first thing I was attracted to was warbirds. They look so cool. Of course, air looks so cool. And aerobatic planes to me did not look cool at all, when I started. But it's that flight envelope. It's the constant learning. Um, I last year I thought if there's any way I could get to rifle rolling 20 feet high, which we talked about, and I already did that. I'm rifle rolling 5 feet high. I thought I'd be completely satisfied, and I'm not satisfied at all now. I see where there's just a vast amount more I could do
What's
if I could keep applying myself.
what's next on your to-do list after rifle rolls
On
are
flying,
checked?
yeah. So I'm pretty good on referrals now. I do want to improve it a lot, but I think the thing you'll see me in the next days, weeks and months, working on is I want to name everything surfer terms. I don't like these terms. I don't like wing slap. I mean, what is this wing slap? So, but what I like in it the best, I've always cheated them. I was doing them 10 years ago. There's a video up of me with a Hanger 9 Extra. We didn't talk about McConville yet. He's the greatest airplane designer ever. So throw that out of the way. And then, but I was doing a square knife edge turn. So I call them knife edge walls. So I do my 4 knife edge walls.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hear this wing flap. What is this wing flap? But I was cheating him. And you talk about it in your video about knife edge walls. That, as you turn, if your wings are out of plumb with the ground, then you can just roll, in that direction. Still looks good. And that's what I was doing. It looked good. And nobody was doing that stuff anyway. So it looked good, and I was satisfied. But what I see now, I see Rui. Is it Rui? The guy from, I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Ryu?
Rio. Um, I was telling all the guys about him last year. When I first got back, I saw his videos right away, and I go, "This guy's elite. He's really good." And I love the way he stays level with or plumb with his wings, so they're perpendicular to the ground all the time, and he changes directions, constantly, which other guys, can do too. But he makes that look really good. And see, with surfing, we would call that rail to rail work. So see, I'm going to make a video where as soon as I get it wired, and I'm going to do all the new turns, and they're all going to be surfer turns. So my flip turn, my turnaround turn that I do, which I've gotten the most compliments on in the last year, is something me and Joe McBride worked out together at the flying field. That flip turn that I do, we call it a cutback snap. That's from surfing. Mm-hmm. And then we're gonna take this end this wing slap thing. So it's gonna be rail to rail work. But right now I'm really bobbling a lot as I go. I'm bobbling up, down, wings, rocking. So I need to put a lot of work in it. It's not scary like rec rolling, so it should be easier. But that's kind of next. Working on the things that look good to me. And to me, when I watch, the funny thing is Jace Ducia is so perfect and so the best at rifle rolling there ever was. But it's so perfect that it doesn't capture my imagination. But when I watch Jake Arnold do it, that's what really inspired me to want to. And I still want to do. That's what I'll work on with the next two. And I do some loops, but I want to do the straight vertical downline that levels out on the runway, the way he does, just full blown, full throttle, fast aileron roll rate. It just looks thick, it looks tall.
It's very impressive.
Yeah, it's super impressive. So, the dream would be to fly like Jake Arnold, but so I still want to do some things with rifle roll. But he does an awesome, rail work. The knife edge ball. So he'll be barreling along like 2 feet high and just slam a wing flap. He'll just slam it, and his plane will just like oscillate, and he'll keep it. And so I tried to do it first time, and I knocked my wing off. I did it with a 40% extra. I'm like, I'll just do it like Jake, and I just came along barreling full throttle. All the guys were watching me, and I just hammered it, and it's just wavering back and forth trying to catch its bearing. And I was just kind of watching it, enjoying it, and I didn't realize how low I was. I got the wing, broke the wing off on the bottom. I still landed it. So then we're going to come up with surfer names for all that, and then we're going to make a video, and we're going to rename all the maneuvers.
All right. Looking forward to seeing that.
But that's it. So, the downline rifle rolls I still want to get, and I definitely want to get, the alternate wing slaps. I want to get the alternate knife edge rudder turns, because those are the things I think look good. I'm working on things I think look good. I'd like to have everything. I'm gonna have to rename the rolling no name before I can do it. Who came up with that? And but your rolling no names look really good. So that's something I want to get to eventually. But yeah, just the maneuvers that look good.
Cool.
I
think we already had
I'm still having fun.
Yeah, that's the important thing.
I want to quit, but I'm still having fun.
I was gonna say we are almost at like 1 hour 20. You mentioned before you have built about 20 planes in the past year. I don't think we are gonna have time to get into each of those. But I want to hear your thoughts about your general experience with those many planes you've been building and testing, and maybe what's the main. Maybe what's the top two that you like from the ones you've tried, and why?
That's easy. And if I wanted to help everybody that not elite and all that stuff, the Skywing Extra NG, it's the most stable of those planes. So if you want something that's a little bit easier to fly, that flies a little slower and all
what
that.
What size is this one?
I had the 116. That's the one I broke the wing on the knife edge ball. So I didn't have them in stock. I was going to get a replacement, but I didn't even replace it.
And just to clarify, did you break it in the air, or did you break it because it touched the ground?
No, I touched the ground and broke it, and then I actually it's still flying. I gave it to Big Al at the flying field. We have a cool kid at the flying field everybody likes, so I just gave it to him, and I gave him a DLE 170 to go with it. So he's all dialed. He's flying around all the time. He flies great. But that plane was very docile, very slow moving compared to the modern stuff. So I think that's a significant thing to tell people. And then Xtreme Flight agrees that their most aggressive plane, and it's the most aggressive plane I have, is the 100-inch. They call it a 105 and a half, and I measured it at 100 and a half, but they say it's actually 100 when they measure it. The Xtreme Flight Slick, and that's the most aggressive plane. That's the one Santi flew last year, and you had one, right?
That's the one I had
Before
last
you
year.
went to fly it. Yeah, and Xtreme Flight agrees, and I agree. Of all the planes I've flown, that's the most aggressive. So if you don't want the most aggressive plane, then don't get it. It's very small, especially you put a GP 123, it's very heavy motor, and then you got not very heavy, but it's heavier than the other 120cc classes, and it's a small plane, and it's just very aggressive. I have the most flights on that plane of all the planes that I've got, and I still love to go fly it. It's super aggressive. And then my favorite plane is the 114 Xtreme Flight Extra NG. I'm an extras guy. It's amazing I'm flying all these slicks. Right now I'm flying an extra. Yesterday's video was an extra. But I'm an extras guy. It's the most point and shoot. It's always neutral. Whatever you input is what is going to happen. It happens relatively quick. They consider it one of their aggressive planes. It's going to be relatively quick. The wings are a little small. I got the GP 178, which is heavy. So, you're going to have to fly it. It's not going to just sit on the wing for you like some other planes. But it's very neutral. Whatever your inputs are or what it's going to do, it doesn't have a tendency that you have to adapt to. It's super neutral, and it's my favorite plane.
Cool. Well, if you come to the 3D event in Amos in June, just try my Pilot RC laser. I think so far it's the plane I've liked the most for freestyle. I think
I would love to try all the
like
RC planes, the Pilot RC planes. I really would love to try them all. It's hard to try all the planes.
I know.
I flew an AJ Laser Z200, 103-inch, brand new, just put together this field. And to me, it was the easiest to fly, most stable for 3D. It was a real joy to fly that plane, and I would love to fly all the Pilot RC planes too.
All right. Well, I think that's probably pretty good. Good point to to stop by.
I told you I talk a lot.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. A lot of good info. Hey, Joe, thanks so much for taking the time. Really appreciate you taking the time, and it's always fun chatting with you.
Same.
If people wanna get in touch with you or wanna find out what you're up to, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Two places to contact me on Facebook at Joe Hunt RC Diary. So just look up Joe Hunt RC Diary, and then I think the thing to do is just go over to Joe Hunt RC on YouTube and just watch the videos. And for the last year, I think I put up like 350. I put up like almost one per day. So a lot of them are talking. It's really funny. I'm just sitting there in the garage talking, and I'm pointing the camera at the floor, the cell phone at the floor, basically. And guys have more views on those than the flying videos. Like they like it.
I think people like or people appreciate the all the little insights you bring, whether it's like flying related, build related, setup related, yeah,
culture, literature.
Yeah.
But no, I think what the guys tell me is they put it on while they're working on their planes, and since it's not a visual video, so it's just like an audiobook. So
yep.
It's not even that I'm saying anything of value. It's that they get their fix.
They have
RC
a buddy. Talk? They have a buddy talking about them about RC.
Yes.
Makes sense. All right.
So I keep them company while they're working on their project.
That's good. Well, I will be keeping an eye on your future rifle roll videos to see how that's going.
Yeah, and you do an amazing job. All your videos are so good, and I learned from every single one of them, and you do a really good job. It must take you a lot of time. I don't take any time.
It's a bit more time consuming than just turning on the phone in the garage, but it's fun. I think for me it's a good way to get a bit more involved in the hobby without having to necessarily go to every single event. Like I have 2 little kids and a full-time job, so I don't have a lot of flexibility in terms of like going to all the events that I would like to go or all the competitions like when I was younger. So it's a different way to do something more with RC.
Oh, I really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad it's helpful. All right, Joe. Good to see you,
Okay.
and yeah, see you around here soon.
See you in a month, Juan.
All right. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.